The Vance Legacy, A Fight for Fatherhood in Miami Part 1, The Hallway Revelation. The sterile air of the Kendall Medical Center in Miami had never felt so suffocating. At 38, Elias Vance was synonymous with ruthless success. His real estate empire dotted the Brickell Avenue skyline. Today, however, his designer suit and platinum watch couldn't hide the tension on his face. He was here to visit his recovering mother, Victoria Thorne. But as he walked the private wing, the life he had so meticulously constructed shattered with a single glance. He froze outside the glass door of room 412. Inside, instead of the expected sterile silence, there was a chaotic, vibrant scene. There was Camila Reyes, his ex-wife, from whom he'd been divorced for exactly 4 years. She looked exhausted, her brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, but there was a fierce light in her eyes. Cuddled on the hospital bed next to her were 3 identical toddlers. 3 boys with dark, curly hair, and, unmistakably, the same amber eyes Elias saw in the mirror every morning. The oxygen left his lungs. The math was simple and devastating. Divorced 4 years ago. Children roughly 3 years old. Elias realized he'd been stripped of the first 3 years of his sons' lives. As Camila looked up, their eyes met through the glass. The sheer shock and terror on her face mirrored his own paralysis. The world Elias thought he controlled had been completely turned upside down. He walked like an automaton toward his mother's room. "Elias, son!" Victoria greeted him with her usual poise. "How long have you known?" Elias didn't even bother to close the door. His voice was a low, dangerous roar, rarely used outside the boardroom. Victoria paled. "Elias, please sit down. I've just had—" "Tell me how long." His hand slammed onto the bedside table, making the bouquet of white orchids tremble. Victoria lowered her gaze, unable to meet his fury. "Since the beginning. Camila tried to contact you. She came to the office. She left letters. I made sure none of it reached you. I thought it was best for you. Love fades, but business—" "You stole my children from me!" Elias stumbled back, feeling the foundations of his life crumble. "You intercepted her pregnancy, their birth, their first steps. Was it worth it, Mother?" Victoria's expression was one of pure panic. She hadn't anticipated the secret would be revealed this way. Elias turned toward the door, his mind already elsewhere. "Gather all those letters, every call log, and every blocked email. I want it all on my desk before morning," he ordered with a chilling finality. "And prepare to lose something more valuable than a corporate acquisition, your own son." Part 2. The Unread Letters and the Fiancé. Elias stormed away from his mother's room, his phone burning in his hand. He canceled all his meetings, including dinner with Serena Hayes, his fiancée, and the heir to Vance Holdings' main rival. Their marriage was a strategic move to merge 2 empires, and now, that entire complex architecture felt utterly hollow. That afternoon, sitting in his penthouse overlooking the ocean, Elias read Camila's letters. There were dozens, detailing with hope, and then with desperation, the progress of her pregnancy. "Elias, please, even if you don't love me, just answer. I can't do this alone. I need you to know they're triplets. The doctors say it will be a difficult birth." The last letter, dated 1 day before the boys turned 3, devastated him. In it, Camila recounted the birthday party she'd thrown alone, with a small cake in their tiny apartment. A real life of struggle and love had been happening just 10 miles from his luxury penthouse, and he'd missed it all because of one betrayal and his own blindness. Leo, Marco, and Nico, he murmured his sons' names, realizing that until this moment, they had only been a vague possibility in his mind. His phone rang, interrupting his grief. It was Serena. "Elias, what the hell does canceling the Dubai partners meeting without explanation mean?" Her voice was sharp and professional. "Serena," Elias said, swallowing hard. "This isn't about business. We need to talk." He told her the story, choosing to take the blame for the lack of communication himself. "That's impossible," Serena said, her voice dangerously calm. You must be in shock, darling. They're ghosts from the past. A DNA test will sort it out. We'll be married in a few months. We won't let this. They are my children, Serena. He cut her off, and the certainty in his voice surprised even him. I know it. I know it in a way I can't explain. And us? The silence stretched. Our plans, the media. Do you know the public ridicule it will be for me if we cancel the wedding? I'm so sorry, Serena, he said, the honesty a painful relief. But my life has changed. I have to be their father. Serena hung up without saying goodbye. If you were in Elias's shoes, would you have cut your mother off immediately or tried to reconcile? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Smash the like button if you think Elias made the right choice by putting his children first. Part 3. The Careful Chef in Coconut Grove. The next morning, Elias went to the boys' room. Camila was finishing packing. Their older, watchful neighbor, Mrs. Gomez, was helping her. Hello, Camila, Elias said, his throat tight. He felt intimidated by the woman who had raised his sons alone. Elias, she replied cautiously. They're ready to go home. He awkwardly handed her an expensive bag of toys he'd impulsively bought. The boys took them, but not before looking to their mother for approval. Elias followed Camilla's beat-up sedan to a modest apartment building in Coconut Grove. The contrast with his own life was stark. The 2-bedroom apartment was small, but it was brimming with love and careful organization. I work at the Sweet Spot, a small bakery, Camilla explained while the boys napped. Childcare is expensive. Why wouldn't anyone else hire you? Elias asked, feeling a wave of shame. Elias? Who would hire a chef pregnant with triplets, freshly divorced from Miami's most feared real estate magnate? Her voice held no bitterness, just deep fatigue. Your reputation precedes my resume. I didn't know, Elias began, his CEO posture collapsing. Of course you didn't, Camila interrupted gently. You were busy building your empire. What do you need? Financially, I mean. Is the hospital covered? No, Camila answered firmly. I don't need your money. It's not charity. I didn't take your mother's check, and I won't take yours now. The only thing I want from you is consistency. If you're going to be in their lives, be consistent. Elias walked over to Nico, who stirred in his sleep. His finger gently touched his son's soft cheek. The touch was electric. In that moment, Elias knew it wasn't about checks or guilt. It was about connection. Part 4. The Culinary Challenge. Over the next few weeks, Elias established an unthinkable routine. His mornings, before 11 o'clock, were for Leo, Marco, and Nico. He learned the logistics of 3 high chairs, the science of star-shaped sandwiches. Only for Nico, and the art of mediating fights over a single toy truck. He gave up his social life and earned the title Papa Elias from the boys. Camila, however, remained guarded. This is a novelty for you, she told him one afternoon. What happens when the real estate market calls you back, and this isn't fun anymore? Elias didn't have time to answer. At that moment, Camilla's phone rang. It was the call of a lifetime, an invitation to compete on The Golden Whisk, a national reality cooking show. The catch, 6 weeks of filming in Miami, requiring contestants to live in a production house. I can't go, Camila said, conflict tearing her face. I can't leave them. Yes, you can, Elias said, the surprise in his voice making her look up. I'll stay with them. Elias, are you crazy? 3 toddlers, 3 years old. It's not a weekend camp. You have no idea what it entails. Teach me, he challenged her. I know it's risky, but this is the dream you gave up for me. If I fail, I'll have tried. But if you succeed, you prove to them and yourself that you don't have to sacrifice your career to be an incredible mother. Camila stared at him, weighing his sincerity. It was a huge risk, but the man in front of her was no longer the cold magnate who had left her. There was something new in him, vulnerability and purpose. 6 weeks, she whispered. 6 weeks for me to prove I can be the father they need, he agreed. And 6 weeks for you to chase the dream you deserve. Elias is taking on the ultimate challenge. What do you predict will be the biggest disaster he faces during those 6 weeks? Will Camilla make it to the final? Hit subscribe now so you don't miss the dramatic finale. Part 5. The Ultimate Commitment. The first week without Camilla was a brutal reality check. Elias completely underestimated the logistics of keeping 3 3-year-olds fed, clean, entertained, and emotionally secure 24/7. Peanut butter ended up in places he didn't know existed in the apartment. "I want mommy," Nico cried for the 5th time that morning. "I want mommy too," Elias admitted honestly, which, surprisingly, made Nico stop crying. "Mommy is very good at taking care of all of us." By the 3rd week, Elias had developed a profound respect for single mothers in general, and for Camilla in particular. He also called Mrs. Gomez 3 times for advice, everything from how to handle food refusal to coping with night terrors. Something extraordinary began to happen during the 4th week. The boys began turning to Papa Elias for comfort, for bedtime stories, and to solve sibling disputes. The trust they placed in him was both terrifying and deeply gratifying. "Papa Elias," Leo said one night, snuggling against him during story time. "You're going to stay forever? You want me to stay forever?" "Yes," all 3 boys replied simultaneously, without hesitation. "Then I'm staying forever," he promised, feeling the weight and beauty of those words. In the 4th week, the real turning point arrived. Marco developed a high fever in the middle of the night, and Elias found himself at the pediatric hospital at 3 a.m. He called Camilla, but instead of asking her to return, he gave her a calm, concise report. "Marco is fine," he said. "The doctors say it's just a common viral infection. You are not going to sacrifice your dream for a fever. Trust me, Camilla. Trust me to care for our sons." A long silence stretched over the line. "Our sons. I love you," Camilla whispered. And this time, neither of them pretended it wasn't said. "I love you too," Elias replied, looking at Marco sleeping peacefully in his arms. "Come home and win this contest. We have a family to build." Part 6. The Real-Life Empire. 6 months later, Elias stood in the kitchen of the new restaurant, watching Camilla direct her team with the confidence of a chef who had proved her talent on national television. Though she hadn't won the competition, she had made it to the finals, and, more importantly, had captured the attention of culinary critics across the country. Elias had discreetly purchased the sweet spot and transformed it into a beautiful, successful, farm-to-table Italian spot. Trattoria Tre Bambini, the 3 Babies Eatery. He had downsized his role at Vance Holdings, stepping back from the relentless pursuit of corporate dominance, and now dedicated himself to small, meaningful real estate projects. His life, once measured in billions, was now measured in moments. "Papa Elias, look!" Leo shouted from the family table in the corner, showing a drawing he'd made during dinner. "It's our family. You, Mommy, us 3, and Grandma Victoria," Marco explained, pointing at the stick figures. The reconciliation with Victoria had been slow and difficult, but she was now learning to prioritize her grandsons over her corporate expectations. Camilla walked over, taking off her apron after another successful night in the kitchen. "How are the critics tonight?" Elias asked. "Satisfied," she replied with a tired but happy smile. "The gourmet Miami critic asked for the chile en nogada recipe. Did you give it to him?" "Of course not," she laughed. "Some family secrets must stay in the family." "Are we a family?" Elias asked her softly, watching the boys fall asleep in their chairs. "Look around," she replied, gesturing to their sleeping children and the thriving restaurant. "What does it look like to you?" "It looks perfect," he admitted. "It's not perfect," Camilla corrected him with a smile. "It's real, and real is better than perfect." Elias kissed her, knowing with absolute certainty that he had found exactly what he had been searching for all his life, though he hadn't known he was looking for it. Success wasn't measured in towers, but in the love of a family they had chosen to create together, despite all the reasons it might have failed. Thank you for reading today's story. Hit like and subscribe. for more stories about second chances and finding real success. Part 7. The Dawn on Brick L Avenue. 6 months after Trattoria Tre Bambini opened, Elias's life had settled into a rhythm he once would have called chaos, but now found profoundly ordered. He woke up at 6:00 a.m., not to an alarm, but to the giggling from 3 adjacent bedrooms. This was inevitably followed by the daily battle to dress Leo, Marco, and Nico, a task requiring the strategy of a military general and the patience of a university professor. Elias had moved out of his cold penthouse and into a cozier townhouse in Coral Gables, closer to both the boys' preschool and Camila's restaurant. He had largely stepped away from Vance Holdings, focusing instead on smaller, more meaningful real estate projects, often renovating old commercial spaces for local small businesses. The new challenge: shadows of the past. Camila's success on the TV show and the restaurant's popularity had drawn attention. Victoria Thorne, Elias's mother, who was initially estranged, had begun to visit. Her visits were still tense, but now, instead of criticism, they were marked by awkward apologies and expensive gifts. One afternoon, as Elias was helping Nico build a Lego tower, Victoria walked in with 3 tiny cashmere sweaters. "They're too much, Mom," Elias said softly, not wanting to spoil the moment. "I know," Victoria replied, her voice rarely showing such softness. "It's just, I don't know how to give handmade bread like Camila. I only know how to use money to show affection." "I'm sorry, Elias. I hurt you and Camila, and I apologize for wasting your time." Her remorse was genuine, yet hard to accept. Elias knew healing would take years, but the fact that Victoria was accepting Camila and her 3 grandsons was a massive step. The return of the ghost. The peace, however, was about to be broken. One evening, after the trattoria had closed, Camila and Elias were discussing a new seasonal menu. Elias's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. He recognized the area code immediately. Manhattan. "It's Julian Vance territory," he muttered, picking up. A woman's voice, icy and sharp, cut through the quiet. "Elias Vance? This is Charlotte Sterling, Elias's former fiancée. The strategic marriage he had abandoned." "Charlotte," he replied, his voice calm. "I assumed you wouldn't be calling. I am calling because your mother, Victoria, has been spreading the story about your sudden family and your life change. It seems your sentimental little choice is affecting the Vance Holdings stock value, but that's not why I called," she sneered. "I called to give you a warning." Elias frowned. "A warning? Warning about what?" "Your ex-fiancée wasn't the only one you discarded, Elias. Serena Hayes is back in Miami, and she's not happy about the wedding cancellation. She's talking to my lawyers, and she's talking to a specific set of journalists. She plans to ensure your real life is thoroughly examined, especially that part about the triplets showing up 3 years after the divorce." The implication hung heavy in the air. Serena was going to twist the truth, suggesting Camila had manipulated the situation or hidden the children. "Thank you for the warning, Charlotte. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a family waiting." He ended the call before she could reply, his hand tight around the phone. He looked up at Camila. Her eyes, which had been sparkling with menu ideas moments before, were now shadowed with concern. "What is it, Elias?" she asked. Elias walked toward her, taking her hands across the steel prep table. "It's the past, Camila, but it's trying to make a comeback." He told her about Charlotte's warning and Serena's potential plan. Camila's hand trembled in his. "I built this life with my own 2 hands, Elias. I will not let a spoiled socialite ruin it with lies, but I can't have them attacking the boys. I won't." Elias looked at her fierce determination. He knew what he had to do. He had spent his whole life defending a false empire. Now it was time to defend his real one. "You don't have to fight this one alone," Elias said, pulling her into a tight hug. "I was a master of media control for years. I know exactly how to manage this. We're not running. We're fighting back. And we're going to use the truth." Part 8. The Counterattack. The next day, Elias did something he hadn't done in months. He walked into the Vance Holdings skyscraper, not as CEO, but as a determined father. He met with his former PR director, a woman he trusted implicitly. "We need a strategy for a preemptive strike," Elias explained. "A story about love, second chances, and redemption. The focus is on Camila's resilience and the sheer miracle of the boys. We frame Serena's inevitable attack as a petty, jealous vendetta." The journalist they chose was a well-respected features writer, not a tabloid reporter. The interview was conducted not in the penthouse, but in the Trattoria Tre Bambini, with Leo, Marco, and Nico running happily around their mother's bustling kitchen. Camila was magnificent. She spoke of her struggle, her pride in raising the boys alone, and her fierce determination to protect them. When asked about Elias, she didn't mince words. "He made mistakes," Camila said, looking straight into the camera. "Big ones. But he is here now. He has proven his commitment not with money, but with time, patience, and love. He is not a magnate anymore. He is a father, and I will stand by the father of my children." Elias, sitting nearby, felt a lump in his throat. This woman was the greatest acquisition he had ever made. The duel of narratives, when Serena's story finally broke a week later, a messy, vindictive piece in a second-tier society magazine that painted Camila as a gold digger who had trapped Elias. It landed with a whimper. Elias and Camila's beautiful, heartfelt story was already trending globally. Readers saw the pictures of the trattoria, the three identical smiling boys, and Camila's genuine smile. They saw a story of real life triumphing over corporate greed. Serena's narrative of betrayal looked exactly like what it was. Sour grapes from a privileged woman who had lost her strategic prize. The public sided fiercely with Camila. Customers flocked to the trattoria. Critics praised Camila's resilience and her food, calling her a culinary champion of the working parent. Serena's lawyers quickly realized they had no case and dropped the matter. A new purpose for the empire. With the past finally neutralized, Elias focused his energy on something far more significant than personal defense. He used his remaining influence and capital to create the Tre Bambini Fund, a nonprofit aimed at providing affordable, high-quality childcare solutions and startup capital for single parents in the Miami area. He also formalized his partnership with Camila. One quiet Sunday morning, after a chaotic breakfast with the boys, Elias knelt on the worn wooden floor of their living room. He didn't offer a diamond as big as his thumb. He offered a simple platinum band. "Camila Reyes," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I lost the first 3 years of our sons' lives, and I wasted 5 years of my own. I don't need a strategic alliance or a corporate merger. I just need you. Will you marry me and help me build a real, messy, beautiful life together?" Camila didn't hesitate. "Yes, Papa Elias," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Let's build a real life." Part 9. The richest family on earth. Their wedding was a small, intimate affair held in the garden behind the trattoria. The most important guests were Leo, Marco, and Nico, who wore matching tiny chef hats and insisted on sampling every canapé. Elias Vance was no longer the ruthless magnate of Brickell Avenue. He was the co-owner of a successful restaurant and the full-time dad of 3 incredible boys. He had traded his empire for a family, and in doing so, had found the one thing he could never buy: genuine joy. He learned that the richest man on earth wasn't the one with the tallest tower, but the one whose life was filled with the smallest, most precious things: the smell of fresh-baked bread, the sound of 3 identical laughter, and the unwavering love of the woman who taught him what it truly meant to be a man. What did Elias ultimately gain by leaving his corporate empire behind? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you believe in second chances and real love, hit that subscribe button to support more stories like this. Part 2. the rhythm of reality. The little wedding in the trattoria garden was perfect, precisely because it wasn't perfect. Nico sneezed during the vows, Marco loudly demanded a slice of bread, and Leo tried to feed the platinum ring to a garden gnome. It was messy, real, and exactly what Elias and Camila had built. The honeymoon was a weekend trip to a quiet cabin in the Everglades, chosen because it was close enough for Mrs. Gomez to call if a triplet emergency arose, balancing two empires. Returning to Miami meant settling into the chaotic rhythm of their new life. They now had two businesses to manage: Trattoria Tre Bambini, which was booming and demanding Camila's full attention, and the Tre Bambini Fund, Elias's passion project, that was quickly growing into a significant nonprofit. Elias, the former real estate titan, found himself negotiating with preschool teachers and scheduling pediatric appointments with the same focus he once reserved for multi-million-dollar deals. One evening, Elias was working late in his home office, drafting grant proposals for the fund. Camila walked in, smelling of sautéed garlic and yeast. "You look stressed," she observed, leaning against the doorframe. "We just got a $500,000 grant from a major foundation," Elias beamed. "But I need to prepare a detailed budget plan for the entire year. It's more complicated than building a whole damn skyscraper." Camila laughed. "Building a skyscraper is about steel and concrete. Building a family is about love and logistics. And the logistics are always harder." She sat down and looked at his numbers. "The fund is growing too fast. It needs a real CEO, someone who understands nonprofit scaling. You're trying to be the CEO of the fund, the financial backer of the trattoria, and a full-time father. Something has to give, Elias." Her clarity was always refreshing. Elias realized he was still trying to control everything, a habit left over from his Vance Holdings days. He needed to learn how to delegate the passion, not just the profit. The last loose end. Despite the overwhelming joy of their new life, one shadow remained: Victoria Thorne. She had slowly softened, her visits becoming a staple of their Sunday dinners. She adored the boys, showering them with subtle, meaningful affection, not just expensive gifts. One evening, while Camila was tucking in the boys, Victoria spoke quietly to Elias in the living room. "I need to tell you something, Elias," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "It's about your father. The reason I was so relentless about your career, about marrying Serena." Elias braced himself. He knew the story was about to get much deeper. "Your father didn't die in a boating accident, Elias. He committed corporate fraud years ago. He was caught and facing prison time. I used every cent and every connection we had to cover it up, to secure your inheritance, and to erase his name from the scandal. I pushed you so hard because I was terrified you would fail and suffer the same humiliation your father did." She looked at him, tears welling up in her eyes. "I didn't just intercept Camila's letters for your career. I did it because I believed love would make you vulnerable, and I couldn't bear to lose you to the same mistakes your father made." Elias was stunned. His father's death had been the foundation of his ambition, the loss that drove him. This was a truth far more complex than a simple betrayal. "You built my life on a lie, Mom," Elias whispered, the shock numbing his anger. "I built your life on fear," Victoria corrected him. "But Camila and those boys, they built it on something real. And I think for the first time you are stronger than the fear." Elias knew he couldn't forgive her overnight, but he finally understood the root of her manipulation. The coldness he saw was just a massive shield built on guilt and panic. Part 11. Full circle. A year passed. The Tre Bambini Fund hired its first executive director, allowing Elias to focus on being a strategic board member and, most importantly, a present father. Trattoria Tre Bambini won the Best New Restaurant Award from Miami Magazine. Camila was radiant, giving a heartfelt acceptance speech where she thanked her investor and partner, Elias Vance. The next morning, Elias had a visitor at his new, small office downtown. It was Julian Vance, his former business rival, and Charlotte Sterling's ex-fiancé, the one who called with the warning. Julian looked tired and rumpled, a shadow of the corporate shark Elias remembered. "I came here because I need your help," Julian admitted. "The fund, your non-profit. I need a project that isn't about profit, a way to give back." Elias smiled. "The irony is thick, Julian. You're asking for help from the man whose life you tried to sabotage." "I know," Julian admitted, "but you're the only one I know who actually found an exit ramp and got it right." "I'm drowning, Elias. I don't want the skyscrapers anymore. I just want to figure out what matters." Elias looked at the man who represented his past life, a life of endless acquisition and fear-driven ambition. He saw himself 3 years ago. "The fund is always looking for new board members, Julian," Elias offered. "But you start as a volunteer at the trattoria on Saturday mornings. You clean the tables and watch Camila work. You learn the cost of real food and the value of hard work. You learn what it's like to build something from the ground up, with your own hands." Julian paused, then nodded, a flicker of genuine hope in his eyes. "I'll take it. Thank you, Elias." As Julian left, Elias looked out the window at the modest street below. His phone rang. It was Camila. "Don't forget the date night tonight," she reminded him. "And can you check on Marco? He said his foot hurts." Elias picked up his briefcase, leaving the corporate world and its ghosts to find its own path. He was heading home. He had a husband's duty to his wife and a father's duty to his son. He knew then, standing firmly on the real estate he had personally chosen, that his wealth was no longer measured by the height of his towers, but by the depth of his commitment. Elias now has his wife, his 3 sons, and a clear conscience. What do you think is the next big challenge for Papa Elias? Will he successfully mentor his former rival Julian? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Part 12, The Apprentice and the Audit. The sight of Julian Vance, the former high-flying hedge fund manager, in a simple Trattoria Tre Bambini apron, cleaning spilled olive oil, was a masterpiece of cosmic irony. Julian was surprisingly diligent. His obsessive attention to detail, once focused on quarterly reports, now applied to scrubbing grout and polishing glassware. Elias had been a stern but patient mentor. Their daily conversations, once hostile, were now about the cost of goods sold, the labor shortage in the service industry, and the sheer unpredictability of real life. A chaos Julian was slowly learning to embrace. "You know, this is harder than predicting the Fed rate hike," Julian admitted one busy Saturday, wiping down a table with surprising speed. "That's because the market only has greed and fear," Elias replied, handing him a tray of dirty plates. "Here, you have toddlers, passion, and a gas leak all on the same day. It requires a different kind of balance." The new board member Julian officially joined the board of the Tre Bambini Fund. His corporate structuring knowledge proved invaluable, helping Elias maximize the fund's impact for single parents. Elias was proud. He had successfully leveraged his former life's contacts for his new, meaningful purpose. Meanwhile, Camila was thriving. She was experimenting with new menus, expanding her catering business, and writing a food column for a local magazine. She was the driving force, and Elias was her anchor. "You know what's funny?" Camila asked one night, after a long shift. "I used to think my biggest achievement would be getting a Michelin star. Now, it's just getting all 3 boys to finish their broccoli." The return of Isabella. Just as life seemed to settle into perfect harmony, the last ghost from Elias's past reappeared. Isabella Ruiz Cortez, his former fiancée, whose family alliance he had broken, arrived unannounced at his office. Isabella, composed and impeccably dressed, wasn't there to fight. She was there to do business and settle a score. "Elias," she said, cutting straight to the point. "My family's firm, Sterling Global, is acquiring the bank that holds the primary loans for the Tre Bambini Fund." Elias's jaw tightened. "What are you doing, Isabella?" "Just being strategic. We've noticed the fund's rapid growth. It's a risk. I'm here to conduct a full financial and operational audit myself. I need to ensure the fund's assets are secure before my family signs off on the acquisition. Elias knew this was more than just business. This was Isabella's attempt to get close, to inspect the life she had lost, and potentially find a weakness she could exploit. The audit would be a grueling examination of every decision he had made since walking away from her. The fund operates with absolute transparency, Elias stated firmly. You'll find everything in order. But if you think you can use this as leverage against me or Camila, you'll be mistaken. Isabella smiled, a flash of her old, ambitious self. I don't need to use leverage, Elias. I just need to see the value of what you chose over me. Let's start the audit tomorrow. Elias realized the true test wasn't surviving a market crash. It was defending the integrity of the second chance he had worked so hard to build. He had left the corporate world, but the corporate world wasn't quite ready to let go of Elias Vance. Part 30. The Audit and the Accountability. The audit began the next day. Isabella, cold and efficient, spent hours going through the Tree Bambini Fund's books. She asked pointed questions about Elias's personal time dedication and the financial feasibility of the micro-loan program for single mothers. Elias answered with patience, fueled by his commitment to the fund's mission. He wasn't just defending numbers, he was defending the reality of his growth. You treat this nonprofit like it's a Fortune 500 company, Isabella observed, after 2 days of relentless questioning. It's more important, Elias corrected her. Because here, failure doesn't mean a stock drop. It means a mother can't feed her triplets. The unexpected defense. On the third day, Isabella interviewed Julian. She expected to find an ex-rival and a former partner in Vice. Instead, she found a fierce defender of the fund. Julian, be honest, Isabella pressed. Elias isn't here as a philanthropist. He's here to escape guilt. This entire fund is his penance. Julian didn't flinch. I'm a financial expert, Isabella. I came here looking for weakness and corruption. I found meticulous management, genuine care, and more raw value than in any corporation I ever worked for. Elias isn't running from guilt. He's running toward his purpose, and I'm running right beside him. Isabella was visibly shaken. Julian's defense was unexpected and utterly convincing. The final showdown later that afternoon. Isabella visited the trattoria unofficially. She watched Camilla move through the busy kitchen, calling orders, comforting a crying Leo with a quick hug, and then whipping up a complex dish with perfect timing. Camilla wasn't the docile wife Isabella had expected. She was a force of nature. Finally, Isabella cornered Elias alone. The fund is clean, Elias, she conceded. Perfectly structured, perfectly managed. You really did change. She looked at him, a flicker of regret crossing her face. I should have known that a man who walks away from a strategic marriage for love would put his heart into everything else. I chose a dynasty. You chose a family. And you won. Elias didn't feel triumph, only relief. It wasn't a competition, Isabella. It was a choice. I chose what was real. Isabella stood to leave, pausing at the door. One last question. Your mother, Victoria. She visits the boys constantly. Why? What did you tell her to make her change? Elias smiled, looking toward the kitchen where Camila was laughing with Marco. I didn't tell her anything. Camila and the boys did. She saw that what we have is stronger than her fear and more valuable than the empire she tried to save. She chose to be a part of the real value. Isabella nodded slowly, a ghost of a smile on her lips. I see. Goodbye, Elias. As she walked out the door and back toward the city of skyscrapers, Elias knew the past was finally, truly, locked away. He had done more than just save his family. He had redefined his entire legacy. The audit is complete. Elias passed the test of his past. Do you think Julian Vance will eventually find his own family happiness, or will he focus entirely on the fund? Share your predictions for Julian's future in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for the next compelling story. Part 14. Julian's New Beginning. Julian Vance, now fully immersed as the CEO of the Tre Bambini Fund, was unrecognizable. His designer suits were replaced by practical business casual, and his demeanor was one of quiet accomplishment, not aggressive conquest. An unexpected partnership, Julian's transformation soon attracted attention, not from the corporate world, but from the non-profit sector. He was invited to speak at a major philanthropy conference in Miami. There, he met Dr. Lena Soto, a brilliant and pragmatic pediatrician who ran a chain of low-cost healthcare clinics for underserved communities. Julian, armed with his financial expertise, analyzed her operational model. He found it sound, but desperately under-leveraged. Elias, observing from the sidelines, saw Julian light up with a new kind of ambition, one focused on impact. "Lena needs capital structure. I need purpose," Julian told Elias after the conference. "If I can help her scale her clinics, we can integrate the fund's childcare support directly into her network. It's synergy, Elias, but for good." This collaboration quickly evolved from professional to personal. Lena saw beyond the corporate ghost. She saw the dedicated man who spoke passionately about second chances and the importance of a stable start for children. Julian, in turn, found a partner who valued his dedication to service over his net worth, Camilla's expanding vision. Meanwhile, Trattoria Tre Bambini was so successful that Camilla decided to expand. She wasn't building a chain, she was building an opportunity. She bought the empty storefront next door to convert it into a culinary training center dedicated to teaching single parents, mostly mothers from the fund's programs, the art of professional cooking and business management. "It's about teaching them how to build their own trattoria, not just work in mine," Camilla explained to Elias one night. "It's the ultimate microloan, paired with skill." Elias, immensely proud, handled the acquisition and construction logistics. He realized their partnership had solidified into something profound. He managed the logistics of her dreams, and she fueled the purpose of his. The family legacy on a Saturday morning, as Elias watched Leo, Marco, and Nico, now active 6-year-olds, play tag in the backyard, he felt a deep sense of peace. He wasn't the master of the universe, but he was the master of this universe, the small, beautiful world he had chosen. His legacy was no longer measured in the foundations of skyscrapers, but in the foundations of resilience he helped build for other families, and the secure, loving home he built for his own. He often reflected on his old life, the fear, the money, the isolation. He wouldn't change a single chaotic, exhausting, joyful day of his new reality. He had been given a second chance, and he had learned that the greatest return on investment is always unconditional love. This is a good point to conclude Elias and Camilla's journey of second chances and purpose. What do you think is the most inspiring lesson from Elias's transformation? Ready for a completely new story, or do you have a fresh idea?